There's been a lot of news going on out there concerning Atari, and we've covered quite a bit of it. We're not going to retread all of this stuff. I want to talk about the new news, the new stuff going on that just has me scratching my head a little bit and really want to hear from you guys what your take and opinion is on this stuff. But we've talked about this, the Game Station little My Arcade Atari thing that they're working on. Still hasn't been any news for months now when this crap is going to be released. And they also had that $1,000, yes, $1,000 for a limited edition set of 10 Atari 2600 games. These fools have kind of lost their way, though. I mean, they're not the original Atari, but they've had problems with these cartridges, man. Having the boards put in backwards, defective, just weird stuff. They don't know what they're doing, man. At least that's my take. They put out the Atari VCS console a few years ago, and I credit where credit's due. They said, hey, we're producing a console. They put it out there. You got the Amico, never came out. Who knows what's going on with that thing? At least they delivered. They just don't support it. It seems like it's kind of like, you know, on the wayside there. They're worried about investments and ridiculously priced cartridges type of thing. You know, even if you buy an Atari VCS from their website, you get it at home, it's not going to work because the software is so outdated. And you have to go on their Discord server, which for me, customer service, downloading a firmware update, getting the actual instructions on how to do it. It shouldn't be buried in a Discord server. You know what I'm saying? But if you buy one from them, it's unplayable. You can't use it. You have to do all this nonsense and log in the BIOS and change things and install the firmware. It's stupid, man. These guys, they don't know what's going on in the world. But they've been out there acquiring stuff, man. Night Dive Studios was a recent one. Company, they've done a lot of work on re-releasing, updating old school games. Doom 64, Turok 2, System Shock 2, which they do have here, where they raised in Kickstarter $1.35 million, 21,625 backers, plus an additional little chunk on backer kit, right? So yeah, they Atari's been putting in some work out there, and they just announced yesterday afternoon anyway that they just made an acquisition of more than 100 PC and console titles from the 80s and 90s. So let's go through this real quick and then take a look at another thing that's going on that I find ridiculous but interesting at the same time. So Atari, one of the world's most iconic consumer brands and interactive entertainment producers, announced the acquisition of all these titles from the 80s and 90s. The collection includes notable games from the Bubsy, yes, Bubsy the Bobcat. Oh my God, they're trying to bring him back. Hardball, Demolition Racer series, as well as the 1942 Pacific Air War F-117A and F-14 Air Combat series. Atari will seek to expand digital and physical distribution of classic titles, create new games based on these IPs, and explore brand and merchandising collaborations. Yeah, so they acquired the trademark to Accolade, GTI brands. Accolade was a well-respected US-based video game developer and publisher from 1984 up until 2000. So they got a lot going on here, man. Acquiring IPs, companies that work with re-releasing games and updating games. So who knows what the future may hold for these guys, right? But Bubsy, is that going to be the new mascot of Atari maybe? I don't know, man. That was from back in the day. Bubsy, I've played some of those games, but I don't really remember them. And that was kind of the problem back in the 90s. All these companies trying to put out these mascots, like these big, mascot cartoony characters, and, have a whole line of games, freaking, different merchandising. Even Bubsy, there was supposed to be like a cartoon of Bubsy, and a lot of this stuff never kind of, panned out, right? So does anybody really give two shits about Bubsy? We'll have to wait and see, right? But the other thing I find interesting is this Atari game pool on Republic. And this has been going on for a little while, but it was like, wow. I saw that there was a very specific thing here where if you put in $5,000, and they've only got 146 investors, just under $250,000 raised of their $1 million goal. But what is the purpose of this, right? So if you put in $5,000, you get the opportunity to get a freaking limited edition Atari 2600 game of the classic game Fatal Run. So this is only for the first 500 investors. So don't wait. Act now. If you're not one of the first 500, you're not going to get this crazy limited edition game. You're paying $5,000 for it, but you'll argue, no, this is an investment. I'm not buying this game for $5,000. I'm investing in the Atari game pool. You know, they talk about all these brands, Digital Eclipse that they've worked with, and they list all these games and whatnot, and all this information here, and really none of it has to do with anything. So, I mean, this should be quite obvious, but it's about the money they raise here and Fig and Atari, like, going in together and publishing a game. I've seen some people be like, oh, look at System Shock, the news with Bubsy. You know, we're going to have the money rolling in if we invest. Let's do this. But it's whatever this money produces, whatever this money is used to create a game. And looking at the terms, like, definitely if you're going to invest in something, do your research. I'm not an expert on any of this, but some of this has me scratching my head, like how much money Fig is taking, the potential of the game being successful and you getting nothing, even if you invested, like you don't get anything. Let's look through this real quick. So how investing works. Fig provides a development amount, part of the funds, to Atari for each licensed game Fig and Atari agrees to. Provided a game funded by Fig is successfully developed and published, Atari will pay Fig a revenue share on sales receipts received by Atari. So it's not a given, even if they get their $1 million, it's not a given that something will successfully be developed and published through this partnership. So Fig's revenue share is 40% of sales receipts for the 60-month period starting on the date that is the earlier of whatever. I'm not going to read all that. Fig's revenue share after this, Fig's revenue share is 20% of sales receipts for 5 years. And then down here, it says Fig then pays out at least 85% of these revenues to shareholders of FGS Atari, so the people investing here. Now, there's something down here, maybe you can help me understand, but it says, accordingly, proceeds could be contributed as Fig funds to Atari for up to 2.5 years into the 5-year term. So, like, okay, let's make this game. Okay, here's part of the funds to work on it, I guess, right? Now, it says, since it may take several years for any licensed game to be developed and start generating revenue, if holders of FGS Atari, the shares, do not receive dividends prior to December 1st, 2027, so if there's nothing that produces money by that time to where there would be a share, if nobody makes money, the investors here by December 1st, 2027, then you never get anything. It doesn't even matter if a game was being worked on. If the game releases December 2nd, 2027 and starts making millions, billions of dollars, you're not getting jack. You will never receive dividends, even though the licensed game may be funded with Fig funds and ultimately may become commercially successful. What? So it's like a very limited time frame. You know, December 1st, 2027, it's only a few years away. Contribute all this damn money and you get nothing out of it. I mean, maybe I'm misinterpreting something here, but it does go on to state, unlike other series of Fig gaming shares, the revenue participation rights of Fig and therefore investors is time limited and will expire on December 1st, 2027, regardless of the amount raised, the amount provided to Atari pursuant to the Atari license agreement, or the success of the games developed. Therefore, investors in FGS Atari may miss out on potential dividend rights due to the terms of the Atari license agreement that they would not have missed if they had invested in other series of companies' Fig gaming shares. I mean, it did say something about how funds aren't provided to Atari, that it'll be returned to investors if the offerings are not provided to Atari within 3 years. But there's no interest, so it's like money's sitting, you're not making anything off of it. Just seems like a very risky endeavor here, you know? But like I said, maybe I just don't get it quite all the way through here, but it just seems kind of weird, the limited time thing, and how even if there is certain amounts of money used to produce something and it becomes successful, there's no guarantee you're going to get anything out of it, depending on the time. But there you go. That's my little rant on Atari for the day. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.